In America, we have a little something called the Bill of Rights. It protects little things like our individual rights to religious liberty, free speech, self-defense, privacy, due process, and the right to a fair trial. But narcissistic liberal journalists only care about the First Amendment's protection over free speech, which they abuse for a living to brainwash their viewers and whitewash the truth. Case in point, national news coverage of the trial of Derek Chauvin. As everyone on the planet knows, thanks to wall-to-wall 24/7 media reports, he's one of the former Minneapolis police officers charged in the death of serial criminal George Floyd. All year long, woke reporters sympathetic to Black Lives Matter have withheld facts about the Floyd incident and promoted false narratives about violent protests. Now, they're ratcheting up the propaganda again as jury selection kicked off. Listen closely to this CNN reporter.
Well, breaking news just into CNN. A judge in Minnesota has just reinstated a third-degree murder charge against former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin, who, of course, killed George Floyd.
Who, of course, killed George Floyd? Really? That was CNN propagandist Jim Sciutto, who, as far as we know, has not been officially selected to serve as either judge or juror in the Chauvin case. Newsflash, Mr. Sciutto. Derek Chauvin is innocent until proven guilty. No verdict has been rendered yet on who or what was the ultimate cause of George Floyd's demise. Now check out another First Amendment abuser in the media spreading flat-out falsehoods to provide cover for rioters. This is Associated Press reporter John Lemire claiming, quote, there was no violence committed in the name of George Floyd.
Let's be very clear as to the different makeup of these protesters, of the people we saw in June versus the people we saw in January. In June, these were nonviolent protesters, racially mixed, a lot of young people, fueled by the Black Lives Matter movement, those outraged by the death of George Floyd, a black man killed under the knee of a white police officer in Minnesota. There was no violence there.
There is no violence there. Who are you going to believe, lying Lemire or your own eyes?
Breaking news overnight. We're talking about the protests and the chaos in the streets from Minneapolis to Los Angeles, the anger erupting across the country over the death of George Floyd while in police custody. The Minnesota governor calling the protests an extremely dangerous situation.
Those protests started right here at the scene peacefully, but within hours turned very, very violent. Police in riot gear struggling to keep things under control. Smoke rising above Minneapolis, parts of the city on fire as a second night of protests turning deadly.
Overnight, Minneapolis on fire. Protesters leaving an auto parts store in flames. Others seen looting a local Target.
Tonight was a different night of protesting.
All of it after demonstrators approached one of the city's police precincts.
We're about to lose the front of the precinct if we don't move this crowd out of the front.
Officers in riot gear tried to maintain order.
The George Floyd riots that spread from the Twin Cities across the country caused $2 billion in damages, led to 14,000 arrests, 12 cops shot, and nearly 24 deaths. It's not merely media bias to claim otherwise. It's media malpractice that could cost even more damage, even more deaths, and may very well deprive an innocent man of his freedom. Hatred of cops has festered as Antifa and Black Lives Matter hijacked America's streets, looted America's small businesses, and terrorized peaceful American citizens. The constitutionally protected right of any accused law enforcement officer to a fair trial is in peril, dire peril, as national media and social media poison the well of public discourse and taint the potential jury pool. Moreover, the abdication of responsibility by police chiefs, sheriffs, prosecutors, and judges to hold the frenzied mob at bay is a fundamental violation of that battered Sixth Amendment right to a fair trial. Just look with your own eyes. The circus atmosphere is in full bloom now before the gavel has pounded in Chauvin's trial, and potential jurors this week repeated time and again that they fear the repercussions of this vengeful mob.
No peace! No peace! No peace! No peace! No peace!
They followed me. When Justin was killed, there was no Black Lives Lives Matter, there was no movement because it was swept under the rug. And that's how it's been for the rest of our families. For Hardell Sherrill, Kobe Heisler, Cordell Handy.
Convict, send those killer cops to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as hell. Indict, convict, send those killer cops to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as hell. Indict, convict, send those killer cops to jail. The whole damn system is guilty as hell.
Did you hear that? Now the very same media that has run cover for violent George Floyd protesters is banned from entering a new quote-unquote autonomous zone across from Chauvin's trial. The peaceful protesters are threatening journalists who dare report on them.
You're going to be in a bad situation here in a second. Oh, I thought if we were on this side of the barricade. No, you're going to be in a bad situation in a second. What do you mean by because you've been called out for what you are and you need to get out of here. Please go. We know what you are. You need to get in your car and go. We're just media. I don't give a who you are. You've been called out for who you are. You need to get in your car and go.
It's very tense near the memorial, and a militant-style group has closed off several blocks with barricades.
The media is reaping what it sowed, but I take no joy in it. This is not what the First Amendment was designed to protect. A man stands accused of murder and faces trial amid a narco-tyranny. Our courts have been clear that, quote, mob law does not become due process of law by securing the assent of a terrorized jury. Those outside a courtroom, whether protesters, media propagandists, or politicians, do not have the right for their false speech to trump the rights of defendants to a free and fair